So there's a couple points I need to make regarding how the judging in UFC is going to get a lot worse. Part of it's the problem with the casuals. Part of it's with the judging criteria trying to be changed in order to prevent bad judging, going to make that problem worse. And the next problem is kind of with casuals. And as mean as I am to casuals, it's not really their fault. But the reason why UFC is trying to change the rules is kind of to please casuals who don't understand the rules. And the problem is spreading to the point where even established like UFC YouTubers are basically lying about what the rules say in order to change the way bad judging decisions go. And you're going to get a lot more people who shouldn't have won, like, even though I know this is a somewhat unpopular opinion, but Valentina Shevchenko did not beat Talia Santos, okay? You're also, to a lesser extent, say controversial things like Anderson Silva never beat Michael Bisping and Dan Henderson didn't beat Michael Bisping in their rematch. The reason why is because people are more interested in climactic moments or singular devastating strikes that are near finishes other than what the actual rules say. And the way to fix this problem isn't actually in fucking with the rules at all, but working within the confines of what's happening in the octagon. So I'm going to try to get to this as quickly as possible. Okay, first, the way that rules used to be was effective striking was the preeminent factor where all fights were judged on that, unless striking was almost dead even, and then it was grappling, and if that was dead even, then it was octagon aggression, and then octagon control, meaning taking the center, holding your opponent down, or at least pushing them against the cage. Now it's striking and grappling are kind of figured together, but you're noticing that the judges are still judging things based on like grappling is not that important. You're also seeing that what effective grappling is apparently is not understood by anybody. Because back in the day, people used to get frustrated, with guys like John Fitch, who would just lay in people's guards. The thing is, that can't even really occur anymore because takedown defense and scrambling and wall walking has advanced to the point where you're always going to see somebody at least try to get half guard before they start laying on a guy. But then you have multiple judges scoring rounds for Valentina Shevchenko when she spent over half the round in rear body triangle, as Talia was threatening chokes with a body triangle on her from taken back position. And just because Valentina's punching over her shoulder at Talia and caused her eye to swell, well, then that counts as effective striking first. And the fact that rear body triangle, which is technically the most dominant grappling position really in all of MMA, beyond even the full mount or anything like that, apparently it counts for nothing. And also, if a jab isn't a significant strike, because a significant strike is every strike that's done at effective range, it's called, except for a jab, which is never considered a significant strike. Explain to me how punching at somebody who's behind you is a significant or effective strike at all. I don't understand that criteria. Now, lay and praying is less of a problem than it used to be because fighters are so good at getting to their feet. And really, lay and pray is worse now than it was back in the John Fitch days from 2006 to 2009. Lay and pray is so much worse now than it was back then for two reasons. One of them is a good reason, and one of them is a bad reason that can very easily be rectified. The first thing is, back in those days, all the way back from the Mark Coleman days to the GSP days, normally when you were to strike an opponent who you had beneath you in a bottom ground position, you would posture up and rain punches, hammer fists, and elbows and shit. Very rarely now, especially from guard position, do you ever see a top positioned grappler posture up. You don't even really see that much in half guard. You almost never see a fighter posture up unless they have the mount or the back taken or some kind of like smushed up against the cage type situation going. Because once you give up chest to chest contact and give separation, these days fighters will get a knee shield, frame, and get back to their feet. Or push off you, get to the cage, get back to their feet. Or worse, start catching you in arm bars and triangle setups. Now, do you see ground triangles hardly at all anymore? You know, with like the rare exception of like the Khabib triangle on Justin Gaethje. You almost never see it. Arm bars from guard, hell, even arm bars from mount. You almost never see it because fighters are drilled so constantly that even the lowest ranked fighters, you won't see them tolerate a guy posturing up from guard. You won't see them tolerate a guy going for arm bars or triangles. They get out of that shit right away. The game has evolved past that. These days, when somebody's getting held the fuck down in a kind of boring fight, and even as a guy who likes grappling, I too can be bored when there doesn't really seem to be a clear threat of a finish, even from rear body triangle or even from mount. You know, if you're not seeing a guy almost on the verge of being finished, that can be very boring, and that does lead to fights where, you know, in these days, people, by the way, are pissed off about judging when, if the judges would actually issue 10-8s, you would force more action. And in fact, the rules account for as low as 10-7s. I've never seen a 10-7. I've also only once ever seen a 10-10, even though that's still possible. But 10-8s, even for fighters who have landed virtually 0 strikes and were taken down in the first 25 seconds and held down for the entirety of the round, you'll still see 10-9s. What the fuck is that? You'll see a guy outstrike another guy, you know, by 20 plus total extra strikes. No 10-8. What the fuck? If you're wondering why fighters are hesitant to be aggressive, is first of all, aggression's not rewarded in the rule system at all. I have never seen aggression rewarded. The only thing I've ever seen rewarded on the feet is total strikes. You can aggress almost 100% of the time, but if you get hit in the face like 5 more times, even 3 more times than the other guy, even if you're advancing, even if your strikes were more damaging, and I think that's part of the reason why they started trying to include language related to impact and damage in the new modified rules, is because, yeah, dude, I've seen guys run backwards, evade, and jab all fucking day versus a guy who's coming at him like a whirling dervish, and just because they jabbed that guy 3 more times and they got hooked across or haymakered across the fucking face, and the judges say, well, the guy who landed more total strikes won. Fuck you. Start actually rewarding aggression like it's on the rule list. And in my opinion, within like 10 strike differential, if you're plus 10 or minus 10 strikes, I don't think total strikes should matter. I think that's when octagon control and aggression should. But those are never awarded. Those might as well not even be in the rules because I've never seen them figure into a decision in my fucking life. Ever. Ever. I don't even know why those are in the rule list. I've never seen a judge take them into account. It's total strikes above everything. And you'll even see some really close fights like Talia Santos versus Valentina Shevchenko, where 5-6 strikes on the feet before the fight goes to the ground are ruled over all the grappling positions, even though they supposedly changed the rules so that grappling and striking is ruled equally. Apparently not. Apparently having 3 minutes of control time doesn't mean shit if you took a handful of straights before you took your opponent down. So here's how you fix that. Okay, I'll end with this. If you don't like lay and pray shit, if you want more aggressive striking matchups, you need to, 1, like I just said, reward forward advancing aggression. That needs to matter, and it needs to matter more than total strikes. And it will produce a positive result better than talking about damage. And let me go on a short diatribe about damage for a second. There are some fighters like Anderson Silva that you can just fucking wail on them and their faces don't even swell. There's fighters like me with super soft white complexions that bruise if you breathe on them wrong. And what do you mean damage? Do you mean you got jabbed and you were cut? Is that damage? Or does that mean I tried to punch you, my glove slid past your face and the edge of my glove sliced your fucking face wide open? Do you mean I elbowed you in the face, or we clashed heads and I split your eyebrow open? What do you mean damage? Do you mean damage as in I threw a huge strike at you and it made a real loud noise and you reacted, but with the reaction we saw, if you slow down the footage, is I shoulder roll away from you, you slammed your fist hard as fuck into my shoulder, the whole crowd goes, ooh, is that a significant strike, or is that even a not landed strike at all? How do you judge punches to the chest? Is the chest an effective strike zone, or only the liver and lower rib cage and belly area? What is a landed hit even? Why is a jab not a significant strike if it rocks the opponent's head back? But is the opponent's head rocking back because they're rolling with punches and leaning, or because I hit them? Can you tell that in real time? What are we even talking about here? Are you going to say like a guy like Anderson Silva isn't taking damage, but guys who just bleed like crazy, like Nate Diaz or Tony Ferguson, that those are guys who are, are you sure? What do you mean damage? Okay, and if a significant strike is anything at range that isn't a jab, or an effective range and isn't a jab, then why isn't there a scoring criteria for an effect that causes attack that causes obvious impact and damage? That's not in the statistics or the rule set at all. But you have guys who will sit there and make entire long YouTube videos talking about how damage and impact matter. No, they fucking don't. They're not even defined. Impact is actually in the rule set. Damage is not. Neither of those two terms are defined. What the fuck do those even mean? Now, I'll leave you with this. Here's how you prevent boring grapple fests, okay? And this was less of a problem back in the John Fitch days, because guys used to posture up to do damage. Guys like Mark Coleman would posture up and hammer fist you from guard. Nowadays, people are so good at getting up and so well versed in submissions, everybody's a jiu-jitsu black belt, that giving up chest-to-chest contact, giving up separation, makes you vulnerable and lets your opponent up. So laying praying is worse now. So who do you tell something to fix this? Not the judges, the referees. With the exception of occasionally Keith Peterson and like Mark Smith, you don't see referees standing up stagnated ground fights, okay? And I'm not even talking about like somebody with mount or rear body triangle for 4 fucking minutes. I'm talking about if we're in a protracted, grounded situation for 4 minutes of the round, and for the first minute, all the action is about 2 or 3 strikes swung over your head as your forehead's into the guy's chest, because you're not going to give up any separation and therefore can't land what's, in my opinion, an effective strike, which you had to posture up to do, really, because you're not going to knock a guy out swinging over your head like a monkey, okay? If you're not going to stand a guy up because he threw 2 of these kind of sliding over punches or a couple snappy shots to the ribs, if he lands 2 or 3 of those in a 60-second period, and then maybe in the next 60 seconds, he advances from full guard to half guard, and then the bottom fighter regains full guard. And then in minute 3, you got half guard back and threw 1 more of these shitty little punches or 1 little hammer fist. And then minute 4 is one of those same 2 things. Stand him the fuck up, okay? If you're not advancing to the back, because the back, everything, grappling isn't as entertaining, I think, as it used to be, because there's only still one surefire way to keep your opponent down and to absolutely threaten a finish, and that's to take their back. People don't give a shit about attempting like arm triangles and shit anymore. In fact, when's the last time you saw like an arm bar from guard? It happens, very uncommon compared to the way it used to be. Triangle from guard, same thing. In fact, you're not even seeing mounted arm bars or mounted triangles and shit anymore. You're not seeing kimuras and key locks, hardly at all. They happen, but rarely. Most submissions you're seeing anymore are either from the back, which is the overwhelming majority of them, or you're seeing submissions actually from sprawl position. There's more anaconda and Peruvian necktie and fucking Darce chokes than there ever used to be, because those are easier to get than anything else now that everybody knows jiu-jitsu. So what you need to do is change the way refs require action before standing a fight up. Same thing with cage clinch position. If you're not fucking getting the guy with something better than a shoulder check or a foot stomp or a little tiny knee to the side of their knee in over a minute, take away the position. I don't think people know exactly what they want, because they don't seem to want to change the way the referee acts. But they also hate these protracted grappling positions, even though this is fucking mixed martial arts. If you want to watch kickboxing, go watch Glory. Go watch K1. It's still great. Go watch it. Like, what are you even doing watching this sport if you don't like grappling? Like, what the fuck? And the thing is, it is worse. And even back in the day, like, they used to take clinch away from Randy Couture. Now he'd go and take it back, And nowadays, like the reason, and if you're pissed off and if judges won't do 10-8s and shit, why don't we just go back to Vale Tudo and just do 15-minute fights and 25-minute fights with no rounds? Well, I'll tell you why. Because if you hate grappling and you're pissed off at the way the judges score shit, oftentimes the only way a talented striker can get back up from a talented grappler is when the bell rings. Because every round starts on the feet, like the saying goes. So why don't we change the rules specifically to say, like, look, you have to land like 5 strikes a minute minimum, or we'll take the position away from you. Or you have to advance position within 60 seconds, or we're going to take this away from you. Because, we got to the point where we stopped standing up just because people closed their guard. And now fighters actually had to learn to get up. Well, okay. Well, now guys won't posture up to strike because they're worried about guys getting up. So now ground and pound is like virtually a lost art, and it's a lost art not because it's not effective anymore. It's less dominant than it used to be, but because there's nothing in the rules that reward it. And the rules still reward forms of lay and pray. And unless referees get a little bit more busy with warnings and stand-ups, like warnings need to come at least every 20 seconds of inactivity, not every 45 seconds to a minute. That's straight up. Okay? So damage isn't the answer. Fucking around the scoring criteria to, quite frankly, make it more muddled than it was 15 years ago isn't the answer. The answer is tell the referees you gotta start penalizing people for inactivity. Honestly, we gotta start taking away points from people who run away and refuse to engage. Okay, we used to do that when people backed up all the time. Now it's considered a viable strategy to fight off your back foot. I mean, the commentators can talk shit about it all you want, but you see guys like Rob Font, you see guys like Max Holloway absolutely fucking killing people with that strategy. They can run backwards all day. So, you gotta tell people, no, you can't run. You gotta start like flagging people for even turning their back on guys. And honestly, you gotta start taking away the positions. The judges are not the problem. And quite frankly, all this nonsense about quote-unquote damage and constantly changing your mind about what a significant strike actually is makes no sense. In my opinion, anything that is not something that obviously fucking hurts your opponent and causes a pained reaction on their fucking face shouldn't be considered a significant strike. I don't care if you punch them in the chest or you hit their shoulder or your fist glanced off the top of their fucking skull. If they don't really react to what you did, is that really a significant strike? Okay? So like when you're saying like guys are landing 100 fucking significant strikes, are they really? Are they fucking really? Are you watching the same fight I am? Because no, they're not. There's not 100 significant strikes per fight, unless you and I have a very drastically different idea of what a significant strike is. And the thing is, we do. The criteria says literally anything that's not a jab that basically connects with the other guy is a significant strike. Fuck off. No, it's not. That's how you fix this problem. Anyway, 18 minutes is probably longer winded than this needed to be, but I could go on for over half an hour about how fucked it is. And honestly, it's changing the rules to pander to the casual audience is the problem. And fixing it isn't saying striking rules above all, even if you're punching above your shoulder at somebody who has the most dominant grappling position in the sport on you. That's not winning a round, okay? And this isn't effective striking from guard either. It's either posture up from half guard at least, get deep half and fucking start landing elbows, or fuck off. Start penalizing people for lay and pray. Because people aren't posturing up because there's no reward for posturing up anymore. It's an extreme risk. You know what? Increase the risk. Say, not only do you have to risk giving up an armbar or something, or losing your position to posture up and effectively strike your opponent, but I'll take away the fucking position from you if you don't try. That's how you fix this, okay? And until a fix like that happens, this problem is not going to get better. It's going to get worse. The changes to the scoring criteria and the absolute refusals of judges to give 10-8s. Because guess what? The second that anything becomes obvious, like this is what a 10-8 looks like, to the point where that fighters and their team members, their coaches, know what a 10-8 looks like, you're going to increase aggression in attempts at finishes. You're going to eliminate decisionators if more 10-8s and even 10-7s, which are accounted for in the rules, get issued. So anyway, that's my 20 minutes on this subject. Thanks for watching.